Hello and welcome back to Zara English Talks. We are so excited to have you here with us today for another long-form listening practice. I'm Zara.
And I'm Mark. On this channel, our goal is to help you improve your English listening skills through natural, interesting conversations. We speak clearly so you can understand every word.
If you enjoy our podcasts, please remember to click the subscribe button. It really helps us create more videos for you. Now, today we have a very important topic. We are going to talk about how to describe your country to a foreigner.
This is a great topic. When you meet someone new, the first thing they usually ask is, where are you from? And what is your country like? So today, we will show you exactly how to answer those questions.
We are going to compare our two very different countries. I am from Canada in the north.
And I am from Australia, way down south. We have a lot to talk about.
So, Mark, let's look at the map. Where exactly is your country located?
Well, Australia is quite far away from almost everywhere else. We are located in the southern hemisphere. Because we are so far south, people often call Australia down under. It is unique because it is both a country and a continent.
That is unique. Canada is very different. We are in the northern hemisphere, located in North America. We are right above the United States. Actually, Canada and the United States share the longest land border in the world.
That is a big difference. Australia is an island, so we don't share a land border with any other country. We are completely surrounded by the ocean. But we do have something in common, Zara. Both of our countries are enormous.
That's true. Canada is actually the second biggest country in the world by total area. It takes days to drive across it.
And Australia is the sixth. So we both come from very large lands with lots of open space.
Now, let's talk about cities. When people think of a country, they usually think of the most famous city first. Mark, what is the capital city of Australia?
This is actually a tricky question for many people. Most learners assume the capital is Sydney or Melbourne because those are the biggest cities. They are the ones you see on postcards and in movies. But actually, the capital city of Australia is Canberra.
That is very interesting. It is the exact same situation in Canada. Everyone knows Toronto because it is huge and busy, or they know Vancouver. However, neither of those is the capital. The capital of Canada is Ottawa.
Right. It is important to know the difference. The capital city is where the government is located. It is the political center. But the famous cities are usually the economic centers where business happens.
Exactly. So when you describe your country, you can use this sentence. The capital is Ottawa, but the largest city is Toronto.
That is a perfect way to explain it. It shows you really understand your country's geography.
Let's move to a very popular topic, the weather. This is probably the biggest difference between our countries. Canada is famous for being very cold.
I have heard stories about the Canadian winter. Just how cold does it get?
In the middle of winter, the temperature can drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius, sometimes even colder. We have snowstorms that can last for days. The ground is covered in ice and white snow for many months.
Minus 30. That is hard for me to imagine. In Australia, our winter is very mild. In most major cities, it never snows. It might get a little chilly, maybe 10 degrees Celsius, but we certainly don't need heavy winter coats.
10 degrees? That sounds almost like summer to me. In Canada, when it is freezing, we have to wear hats, gloves, scarves, and big boots just to go outside safely.
That is a completely different world. For us, winter just means wearing a light jacket.
Now, let's flip the coin and talk about summer. While you are freezing in winter, we are often roasting in summer. The Australian summer can be scorching hot.
I have heard that. Is it true that the heat can be dangerous?
Yes, absolutely. Temperatures can easily reach 40 degrees Celsius. But the real problem is the sun itself.
The UV rays, the ultraviolet light from the sun, are incredibly strong in Australia. You can get a bad sunburn in just 10 minutes. We have to wear strong sunscreen and wide hats all the time to protect our skin.
That sounds intense. People often think Canada is always cold, but we do have a proper summer. It is short, usually just June, July, and August, but it can get surprisingly hot.
Really? Does it get dry like in Australia?
No, in cities like Toronto, it gets very humid. The air feels heavy and sticky because of all the moisture. So while you have a dry, burning heat, we have a wet, sticky heat. Both can be quite uncomfortable. Since our countries are so big, the landscape changes a lot depending on where you are. But when people imagine Canada, they usually picture nature.
I imagine big mountains and lots of trees. Is that accurate?
It is very accurate. In the West, we have the famous Rocky Mountains. These are huge, jagged mountains with snow on the top all year round. Nestled between these mountains, you can find incredible lakes. The water in places like Lake Louise is a bright turquoise blue color. It looks almost like a painting.
Turquoise water? That sounds absolutely breathtaking.
It really is. And aside from the mountains, Canada's covered in vast forests. We have endless rows of green pine trees. And did you know that Canada has more lakes than the rest of the world combined?
Wow, I didn't know that. More than the rest of the world combined? That is a lot of water.
It is. So if you like canoeing, camping, or just peace and quiet, the Canadian wilderness is the perfect place.
While Canada is defined by snow and green forests, Australia is famous for being red and yellow. The middle of our country is a huge desert that we call the outback.
I have heard that word before. The outback. What does it actually look like?
It is vast, empty, and dry. The soil is actually a rusty red color because of the iron in the earth. We often call it the red center. It is very beautiful, but it is a harsh environment. And where you have forests, we have the bush.
Is the bush different from a forest?
A little bit. A forest usually feels lush and green. The bush is drier with eucalyptus trees and dusty ground. But we aren't just a desert. Most Australians actually live on the coast. We have thousands of kilometers of golden, sandy beaches. So the Australian landscape is a mix, a dry red center and a beautiful blue coastline.
That sounds like a land of extremes.
Since we've talked about the land, we must talk about the animals. Australia is very famous for its unique creatures. Our most well-known and cuddliest symbol is the koala. They are fuzzy, gray, and they spend about 20 hours a day sleeping in eucalyptus trees. Many visitors mistakenly call them koala bears, but they are actually marsupials, not bears.
They sound very relaxed. Canada's national animal is the beaver. It's not quite as cuddly as a koala, but it is very important to our history. Beavers are known for being incredible engineers. They build huge, complicated dams in rivers using sticks and mud. They are a symbol of hard work and industry in Canada.
That is a wonderful symbol. So, we have an animal that spends its life sleeping and eating leaves, and you have an animal that spends its life working and building.
Exactly, a perfect contrast.
Okay, we talked about the adorable koala. Now let's talk about the famous, or perhaps infamous, Australian wildlife. Australia has a global reputation for having the world's most dangerous animals. We have highly venomous spiders, deadly snakes, saltwater crocodiles, and even great white sharks in the ocean.
That sounds terrifying. It is definitely a huge difference from Canada. Our dangerous animals are different. Our threat comes from animals that are simply huge. We don't have many venomous species.
What is your biggest danger in the woods?
Our bears, we have bears, both black bears and the massive grizzly bear. And we have the huge moose. A moose is an enormous animal that can weigh over 700 kilograms and can be aggressive if you surprise it. Our dangers are generally big and furry, not small and venomous.
That's a great distinction. It is the size you have to worry about, not the poison. So it's big and furry versus small and deadly.
Now, we have to talk about food. Every country has that one famous dish that everyone knows. For Canada, it is definitely poutine.
I've heard this word many times, poutine. What exactly is it? It made of? It sounds heavy.
It's actually quite simple, but very rich and filling. You take hot, crispy French fries, you add cheese curds, which are small pieces of soft, squeaky cheese, and then you cover the whole thing in a thick, hot brown gravy.
Wow, that sounds incredibly comforting and savory. That is true comfort food. In Australia, we don't have one heavy national dish like that, but we certainly love the meat pie.
A meat pie? Like a little pastry?
Yes, it is a small handheld pie with a flaky crust. Inside, there is a savory filling, usually ground beef and rich gravy. It is a quick, easy lunch that you can buy almost anywhere.
That is a great contrast. Rich and messy poutine versus a neat, savory meat pie.
We talked about main dishes, but what about the unique snacks and spreads that define our cultures? Australia has the infamous spread called Vegemite.
Ah, yes, the salty black paste. I've heard many people from other countries try it once and immediately hate it.
They hate it because they eat too much. Vegemite is a dark, salty spread made from yeast extract. It has a very strong, savory, and almost bitter taste. The absolute secret is to spread a very thin layer on buttered toast, just a tiny scraping. It's truly delicious that way.
That is a helpful tip. We can offer something sweet to counter your salty snack. Maple syrup. Canada is the world's largest producer of maple syrup. We put the syrup on absolutely everything.
I love maple syrup. It's rich, natural, and perfect on pancakes.
Exactly. We use it on waffles and candy and even in some savory recipes. It is a completely natural, sweet, rich taste that is synonymous with being Canadian.
We talked a lot about what we eat, but what about what we drink? Australia is globally famous for its strong coffee culture. We take coffee very seriously.
I know. You have unique espresso-based drinks like the flat white, right?
Exactly. The flat white is very popular, but really, the cafe lifestyle is huge. Australians are often called coffee snobs because we expect extremely high quality from our baristas.
That is definitely a cultural difference. In Canada, we have a famous coffee chain called Tim Hortons. It's a national institution.
Is that like a boutique coffee shop?
Not quite. It's more about quick convenience coffee and baked goods like donuts. People don't often go there to sit for hours. Our most famous order is a double double, which means coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars.
A double-double. So Australia focuses on high-quality espresso, and Canada focuses on quick, convenient coffee and donuts, a fascinating contrast in daily habits.
We've talked about the land and the food. Now let's talk about the people. The biggest stereotype about Canadians is that we are too polite and that we constantly apologize even when it is not our fault.
Is that true? Do you really say sorry all the time?
It's definitely a little bit true. We value being very polite and trying to avoid conflict. We might accidentally bump into a table and instinctively say, "Oh, sorry." It is just a cultural habit of being overly mindful.
I think that is a wonderful reputation to have. Australian people, on the other hand, are generally known for being very laid back and friendly. Our most famous phrase is "no worries," which we use to mean "it's okay," "you're welcome," or "don't stress."
That phrase perfectly captures the Australian spirit.
We try to keep things easy, casual, and stress-free. We try to be very welcoming, especially to visitors. So one culture is defined by being very polite, and the other by being very relaxed.
Despite both speaking English, our countries have very distinct accents, and we use different slang. Mark, I think the most classic Canadian word we use is a.
It is a fascinating word. I hear it a lot. What does it actually mean?
It's an interesting little word that we often add to the end of a sentence when asking for confirmation or agreement. For example, it is snowing quite heavily outside, eh? Or sometimes it is just used as a filler word. It's a key part of the Canadian accent and identity.
I like that. In Australia, we have lots of unique slang, but two very simple ones are "g'day" and "mate."
I know good day is short for good day. Do you use it for everyone?
Yes, it is a very common, casual way to say hello used by everyone. And "mate" is simply a friendly word for friend. We use it constantly. "G'day, mate. How are you?" It adds to the friendly, laid-back persona we discussed earlier.
Our climates really determine what we do for fun. Since we have such long, cold winters, the most important sport in Canada is ice hockey. It is our national winter sport.
That makes perfect sense. You have so much natural ice and snow.
Exactly. Children learn to skate very early. Hockey is played on a large rink with a small puck, and it is very fast and exciting. It's definitely a cultural obsession.
In Australia, our sports are built for the heat. We don't really have a national winter sport. We are completely obsessed with cricket. It's a summer game played on a large pitch that can sometimes last for days.
That's such a contrast. A slow, long game versus a fast, icy game.
We also love rugby and, of course, any water sport. Because we have such a long coastline, many children learn to surf or sail from a young age. Our life is often focused on the beach.
Let's talk about a major holiday, Christmas. Because of our opposite seasons, our celebrations look totally different. In Canada, we always dream of a white Christmas.
You mean a Christmas with lots of snow?
Exactly. It is usually very cold, so the holiday is centered around being warm inside, perhaps sitting by a fireplace and eating a huge hot meal, like a traditional roast turkey dinner.
That sounds very cozy, but completely different from our summer Christmas in Australia. It's usually far too hot to wear big sweaters or eat heavy hot food.
So, what do you do instead?
We spend the day outside. Many families go to the beach, swim in the ocean, or have a barbecue in the backyard. We eat cold food like fresh seafood and light salads. It's definitely a more casual and sun-drenched celebration.
A Christmas barbecue. I can't imagine that, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Let's quickly talk about our school systems. In Canada, children typically start in elementary school around age 5 or 6. Then they move on to high school.
That structure is similar in Australia, but one major difference is the school uniform. In most Australian schools, wearing a uniform is compulsory. Students wear a formal shirt, shorts, or a skirt, and often a tie.
That is a big difference. In Canada, children in public schools generally do not wear uniforms. They wear their own clothes every day.
That must make things easier in the morning. Another difference is the school calendar. Because our seasons are opposite, your school year starts in September, right?
Yes, that is when our summer holiday ends.
Ours begins in late January or early February, right after our very hot summer holiday. So your main long holiday is in the middle of the year and ours is at the end of the year.
We've given listeners lots of reasons to visit our countries. If someone only had a short time in Canada, what 2 places should they visit?
That's a difficult question, but I'm excited to hear the answer.
My first recommendation is Niagara Falls. It is a massive, powerful waterfall located near the border of the USA. The sheer volume of water going over the edge is breathtaking and incredibly loud. You can even take a boat ride right up to the base of the falls.
I've seen pictures. It looks absolutely incredible. What's your second must-see spot?
For true Canadian nature, you must go to Banff National Park in the province of Alberta. It is located deep in the Rocky Mountains. The scenery there is unmatched, with towering peaks, glaciers, and lakes with the most vivid turquoise water you will ever see.
Wow, so a huge, powerful waterfall and incredibly beautiful, peaceful mountains. That gives our listeners a great contrast.
Okay, now it's my turn to give travel advice. If someone is visiting Australia, what two places are an absolute must-see?
I'm excited to hear this. I hope you say the Sydney Opera House.
I will, but first, my biggest recommendation is the Great Barrier Reef. It's the world's largest coral reef system, located off the Queensland coast. You can swim, snorkel, or dive and see thousands of types of colorful fish and unique marine life. It is an absolutely magical underwater world.
That sounds truly magical. And what about your famous city landmark?
For a man-made landmark, you have to see the Sydney Opera House. Its unique white shell shape is instantly recognizable, and it is one of the most famous pieces of architecture in the world. It perfectly overlooks Sydney Harbor.
That's a perfect pairing. Nature's greatest structure and man's greatest structure. We should address a realistic but important topic, the costs of living. Both Canada and Australia are known for being beautiful places to live, but they are also quite expensive.
That's true. Especially in the major cities, the prices can be very high, which is important for our listeners to know.
Yes. In Canadian cities like Vancouver and Toronto, finding an affordable place to live is a huge challenge. The rent for a small apartment can be extremely high.
It's exactly the same in Australia. Sydney and Melbourne are incredibly pricey. Basic things like groceries and dining out in restaurants can also be costly compared to many other countries.
So, if a listener is planning to visit or study, they should be prepared. While the cost of living is high in the big cities, smaller towns and regions often offer a much more affordable lifestyle.
Absolutely. It's always cheaper to live away from the main economic centers. So both of our amazing countries are beautiful, but they certainly require a little financial planning.
National symbols are a quick way to describe your country's identity. For Canada, the most famous symbol is clearly the maple leaf.
It's so iconic. It is instantly recognizable and dominates your national flag.
It's everywhere. The red and white Canadian flag is dominated by the maple leaf. It represents nature, our vast forests, and the deep connection Canadians have to the environment. It is a very natural and peaceful symbol.
That is beautiful. The Australian flag is different. The most recognizable symbol on ours is the Southern Cross.
That's a constellation of stars, right?
Exactly. It is a famous pattern of stars visible only in the Southern Hemisphere. For ancient travelers and sailors, the Southern Cross was absolutely crucial for navigation. It represents our unique geographical location and our history of discovery and travel.
So we are represented by a leaf from the ground, and you are represented by stars in the sky. What a great contrast. Let's talk about pop culture. Canada has a huge influence on the global music and film industry.
You certainly do. Who are some of the biggest names coming from Canada right now?
In music, we have global superstars like Drake and The Weeknd. In Hollywood, Canada has produced famous actors like Ryan Gosling and Ryan Reynolds. So when you watch a major movie or listen to the radio, chances are you are enjoying Canadian talent.
That's really impressive. Australia is well known for its incredible actors and filmmakers. We have major Hollywood stars like Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, and Chris Hemsworth, who are all Australian natives.
I think people often get those two countries mixed up.
They do. We also have a very distinct style of filmmaking, often showing the harsh but beautiful landscape of the outback in our movies. We export a lot of stories and actors.
That's a great way to put it. Canadian pop music versus Australian action stars and filmmakers. Let's end our comparison with a nod to innovation. Both of our countries have made major contributions to the world through science and technology.
What are some of the most important Canadian inventions?
Two massive examples are the telephone, which was largely developed by Alexander Graham Bell while he was living in Canada, and insulin, the life-saving drug discovered by Canadian scientists Banting and Best. These were world-changing medical and communication discoveries.
Those are certainly massive contributions. Australia is also a very innovative nation. Perhaps our most famous global invention is Wi-Fi. The core technology that allows for fast wireless internet was actually invented by Australian scientists.
Wow, I didn't know that. That technology is absolutely essential to modern life today.
It is. We also invented the cochlear implant, which is a highly effective medical device that helps deaf people hear. So we both focus a lot on communication and medical technology.
We've covered so much ground today. Before we finish, let's quickly summarize the biggest differences between Canada and Australia to reinforce the learning.
Great idea. The core difference is definitely the environment. Canada is defined by being cold and snowy, with vast forests and countless lakes. Australia is typically hot and dry, defined by the red outback and the golden coastline.
And the personalities of the people often reflect that. We are often seen as very polite and sometimes formal, while Australians are famous for being laid back and constantly saying no worries.
We also saw contrasting food cultures, like your rich poutine versus our handheld meat pies. And, of course, the difference in our animals, your big, furry bears versus our small, venomous spiders.
The contrast is truly fascinating. We hope this comparison has given our listeners a lot of new vocabulary and clear ways to describe their own home countries.
We sure hope so. It's important to practice using these descriptive terms.
Well, Mark, that brings us to the end of our comparison between Canada and Australia. It has been really fun and informative long listening session.
It has. We hope this conversation helped you understand new vocabulary related to weather, animals, food, and culture. Remember, the best way to improve your English listening is to listen to these conversations again and again.
Absolutely. And now it's your turn to practice. We want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us what country you are from and use some of the new descriptive words you learned today.
Yes, describe your capital city, your famous food, or your unique animals. Use the language we practiced.
If you enjoyed this 25-section podcast, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Zara English Talks for more listening practice. We upload new 20 to 30-minute videos every week.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Goodbye for now.